Space Marine 2 will be gracing our galaxy on the 9th of September, so what are us Warhammer fans to do until then? Let me tell you. Good afternoon, sons and daughters of the Emperor. I am Doodleman149, and thank you for joining me today. Space Marine 2 is the highly anticipated sequel to the 2011 title. With the sequel being almost 13 years to the day since the last one, some of us may be wondering what to play until then to keep bringing glory to the Emperor of Mankind. Luckily for you, I've got the answer to just that. I'll be giving you all the top 5 Warhammer games you should play to tide you over to the release of Space Marine 2. If you end up liking this video, that little thumbs up is just begging for a push. Let's hop into this. Darktide. The first game I'll suggest is probably an obvious one, aside from replaying Space Marine 1, and that is Warhammer 40k Darktide. You are a reject, a prisoner of the Imperium of Mankind who is freed from captivity by the Inquisition to give your lives to bettering the Imperium. Specifically, you'll be taken to Tertium, where chaotic Nurgle-like corruption has taken hold of the Hive City, and you are tasked with various missions to help solve this problem. Darktide is a 4-player co-op game akin to Left 4 Dead, with some notable differences. The only one that is worse is that it is always online, meaning you can't join any matches with the terrible bots like you could in Left 4 Dead. However, it is also a marked improvement over Left 4 Dead. It features fully customizable characters from 4 different classes, each with their own unique abilities and weapons they bring to the battlefield. There's character progression and detailed and dark maps to explore. The graphics are great, the combat is visceral, and the difficulty is fair, but not easy on regular difficulties. If you're a fan of co-op first-person shooters, and more specifically Left 4 Dead and Deep Rock Galactic, then there is a lot to love in Darktide. Some people on Twitter complain daily about the lack of new content for the game, but these are also the same people who game for the length of a workday. If you're a regular fellow like myself, you'll find plenty of challenge and enjoyment from this well-made title. Warhammer 40k Tacticus. Going in the completely opposite direction, we have Warhammer 40k Tacticus. Tacticus is a turn-based strategy game for your phone. It features a variety of factions from the Warhammer 40k universe, including some favorites like the Ultramarines, the Black Templars, the Dark Angels, as well as Xenos like the Eldar, Necrons, and Orcs, plus Chaos factions like the Death Guard, Thousand Sons, and the newer World Eaters. It can be a grindy game, but it's also very casual in terms of player commitment, so the grind, and more importantly, the air quotes need to buy something isn't really there, at least for a regular person such as myself. Everything is earnable, and there's daily challenges and battle passes to progress through, so there's always something to do. Plus, if you're a fan of working with or against other people, there are guilds to join where you can take on massive bosses like a Screamer Killer or even Mortarion. I'm glad they also recently added Guild Wars, as it adds a huge strategic layer to the game that you simply don't get when you play against the AI. If you are a casual fan of mobile gaming like I am and don't like feeling pressured to buy anything, then Tacticus is a good route to go if you're into strategy games. It's not a 4X type of game or anything, it's just simply turn-based matches that can slog on or be ended very quickly depending on how well you play and who you bring to battle. Plus, it's free, so why not at least give it a try. If you're looking for a guild to join, I can probably make some space in mine if you want to team up. Necromunda Hired Gun. Next we have Necromunda Hired Gun, which is a first-person shooter where you play as a mercenary, hence the name, who is seeking to uncover a conspiracy involving a powerful gang in Necromunda's underworld. Unlike my first 2 suggestions, this game is linear, with stages that can be played through normally, but you can then later take on optional contracts that require them to complete specific tasks in a portion of a level, adding to replayability. You can choose between melee or ranged weapons with upgrades available for each. Much like the recent Doom entries, you can execute enemies when within range of them as well, giving you some satisfying brutality of the universe. The game focuses on maintaining momentum, with the player being able to use a grappling hook, dash around enemies, and wall run. Almost think Titanfall, but in Warhammer. There are platforming and stealth sections scattered throughout the game as well, so it's not all just mindless shooting. Best of all, you've got a combat pupper, which can be used to spot and attack enemies and be a very good boy. He can also be upgraded to improve his abilities and gain new ones. The end of each level culminates in a boss fight. After you're done mowing through the rank-and-file enemies, there are even bosses for you to battle. Hired Gun also has a central hub area called Martyr's End, where players can gain access to levels and can pick out contracts. The hub serves as the area where much of the game's story and side quests exists. The player can also purchase weapons, abilities, and upgrades at shops around this area. So obviously, if you're a fan of first-person shooters and Warhammer, this seems like the perfect blend of the two. It is single player, so you won't have to worry about getting paired up or against any other annoying players, so that is refreshing given how many modern games focus all on the multiplayer. I haven't yet finished the story, so I can't comment fully on its depth and quality, so I'll leave that up to you to discover on your own. Inquisitor Martyr. The next game we've got on hand is Inquisitor Martyr. As you could probably deduce from looking at the footage, this looks a lot like Diablo, and you'd be right. The gameplay uses a top-down camera and focuses heavily on action, both melee and ranged, and it has a leveling system and different playable character classes. There's also a cover system for both the players and the enemies, and it features destructible environments. While I haven't played any Diablo games, that destruction does sound interesting in an innovation sort of way. There's also a co-op option. There are 4 playable classes in this game. The Psyker has powerful area attack and debuff spells, the Crusader is slow but heavily armored, the Assassin is fast and deadly but lightly armored, and the Tech Adept, which is only available in expansion, summons robotic minions to fight alongside him. So basically you've got a spellcaster, a tank, a damage dealer, and a summoner. So, if you're a fan of Diablo-style dungeon crawlers, then perhaps Inquisitor Martyr is for you, especially if you aren't happy with the latest Diablo offerings. You've got top-down RPG action set in the expansive and brutal 40k universe. What's not to love? Boltgun. The final game I'll be recommending today is Warhammer 40k Boltgun. If this looks like OG Doom games, then that is intentional. This homage to the boomer shooters of yesteryear brings us all the fun, quick action we've come to know from the older and even the newer Doom games, while still giving us some modern additions to make the games more palpable to newer audiences. Taking place on the forged world of Graia several years after the events of Space Marine 1, the player takes the role of Malum Cato, a Sternguard veteran of the Ultramarines sent by the Inquisition to Graia on a mission of great importance. Since the Orc and Chaos invasion from years before, the Inquisition has kept Graia closely watched for further threats. Inquisitor Siebel reveals that the rogue tech priests of Graia have experimented with the remains of the late Inquisitor Drogon's power source, and the experiments have resulted in the opening of a warp rift that have allowed the forces of Chaos to once again invade the Forge world. If you don't know who Inquisitor Drogon and his power source is, I certainly won't spoil it for you. It's a major part of Space Marine 1. As Malum Cato, you rip and tear through the forces of Chaos as you make your way to close the warp portal and sends those demons back to the warp. Needless to say, if you've got nostalgia for the older Doom or Wolfenstein games and you're into Warhammer 40k, then Boltgun should be an easy sell for you. High-octane FPS action with a retro aesthetic that isn't off-putting to newer gamers either. I'd easily pick this one up if I were you. And there you have it, folks, my 5 suggested Warhammer video games to pass the time until Space Marine 2 launches later this year. Most of these are FPS games, being Darktide, Hired Gun, and Boltgun, but if you want a more tactical approach that's free, then Tacticus might be up your alley, while Inquisitor brings you Diablo-esque dungeon crawling. Have you played any of these games already? Have you liked any of them? Which new ones are you planning to try? Let me know in the comments below. I was lucky and snagged all these games for dirt cheap during the Skulls event a couple months ago, so I'm not sure what the prices are like now. But I think I managed to get them all for maybe $30, so that's not too bad. I'm hoping to cover some of Space Marine 2 later on, but we'll see how this video does first. So until next time, I've been Doodleman149, and I will see you later. For the Emperor!